Today we have Professor Eyal Winter, Professor of Economics at the Hebrew University, specializing in behavioral economics and game theory, joining us this evening. Good evening, Professor.
Hi, good evening. Nice seeing you.
Nice meeting you too. It is indeed an honor to have you with us this evening.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So we're really looking forward to listening to your talk later, titled Feeling Smart, Why Our Emotions are More Rational Than We Think. It seems like it is a rather intriguing topic to discuss about. And to quote Eric Meskin, the Nobel laureate, about your book, emotions and rationality are often thought of as polar opposites, but you've shown that emotions can actually promote rational behavior, and that's what makes the book a fascinating read, according to him. So, Professor, could you please elaborate on this further?
Well, yes. We tend to think about emotions in the context of decision making, largely as a negative thing. Many of us have the craving to be like, remember Mr. Spock, who could turn off his emotional being and make decision basically only by reasoning and logic. And what I'm claiming in the book is this is a wrong way to make decision. And in contrast to conventional wisdom, emotions it's not only that they don't work against us, they work very much in our favor, and very much in our favor down to material aspects, right? Yeah. Emotions facilitate our social life. We cannot interact without emotions, right? Yeah. And magically, even negative emotions, and I'm going to talk about it in my talk, even negative emotion like anger, for instance, serve us in various ways, for instance, in negotiations, in interacting with people. Of course, it all depends what volume we are experiencing these emotions. Emotion could be detrimental to us if they are exaggerated, but in the right tuning, they help us a lot.
Yeah, that's very interesting actually, because it's very hard to just put emotions away and standard economic model and then try to differentiate both of them. In this case, we're trying to put them together and see how it would help. So I think that's very interesting. And I'm really looking forward to hearing more of it later. But Professor, what other ideas do you consider that should be re-examined at this point, or are there any specific ideas that you're interested in for future research?
Well, I think we need to learn much more, and this is something I'm putting a substantial effort now. We need to understand better moral sentiments. Moral sentiments haven't been studied, at least not by economists enough. They've been studied by philosophers, but we need to have an economic look at these aspects. Adam Smith, the great economist, is remembered for his Wealth of Nations, but he also wrote a very famous book on moral sentiments. And these two aspects, free economy and the pursuit of profit, is not contradictory to moral sentiment. In fact, they work together very well. And we need to study them better.
I see. So that's a complementarity, I would say, between the both.
Yes, moral sentiment also facilitate much of our interactions in life and promote us. But we need to understand how and why they do it.
I see. That's very interesting, Professor. So with various impressive contributions towards economics thus far, what do you personally think, is a path-breaking contribution to this field?
Well, there are lots of path-breaking contributions. Interestingly, economics is a very broad discipline. In fact, economics have links to basically every discipline in social sciences. We economists are, to some extent, we deal with economic decisions. So of course we have to with the stuff that we are doing has to do with macroeconomic, microeconomic, but not only. We economists deal with issues that sociologists are dealing with, that psychologists are dealing with, that philosophers are dealing with, and this is fascinating. And I think enhancing our links with other disciplines in the social sciences would be a great benefit for us. We right now, unfortunately, the flow of information, the flow of knowledge is running only in one direction, from us to them. Unfortunately, we are less receptive to accepting or to learning from other disciplines. We should be more receptive.
I see. So like more interdisciplinary modules.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. That's very true. And Professor, so now back to basics. Could you tell us what exactly attracted you to this field in the first place? Why game theory and why behavioral economics?
Oh, it's a good question. I think these two issues represent two things that I'm really enthusiastic about. I'm really enjoy doing. One of them is mathematics. I started as mathematician. I did my first degree in math. And game theory is partly about mathematics.
Yep.
You know, John Nash, the famous John Nash,
yes.
he wasn't an economist, he was a mathematician. So this was one of my fascinations. The other fascination that I have is human being, is understanding human being. And I was so lucky to be able to combine these two things. And game theory, on one hand, together with behavioral economics, allow me to do this, allow me to look at people, try to understand them at the intuitive level, which obviously involve emotions. You can't understand people intuitively unless you are affected emotionally. So I like to look at people and then to try to analyze their behavior, why they're doing it. What's the motivation? What are the incentives behind the way that they behave? And could we change these incentives and make them behave differently in a way that will be socially better, socially more efficient? These are the kind of topics that fascinate me, and I'm quite lucky to be able to do it professionally.
I see. So basically, people, like economists, could use this moral sentiments, emotions, and nudge people with to incentivize them to do the better for the society. And like, if you understand emotions, that would obviously direct them in a better way than just looking at a standard economic model.
Yes, yes, definitely. We have to. Economics models are very important. Yeah. They are enlightening us in all sorts of ways. But they're not enough. We have to understand how people behave also at the empirical level. And the empirical level means that you either have to run laboratory experiment and put people in a situation, in a simulated situation, which somehow resembles a real life situation, or alternatively resort to real data, right? Which is more complicated, which is more tricky. But behavioral economists are doing both. They're doing laboratory experiment, they're doing field experiment, they're seeking empirical data, existing empirical data, and all these together will allow us to understand people better.
Yeah, that's interesting, Professor. So, Professor, if you were a young economist today, or you were to advise a young economist to go into this field, what are the aspects of economics do you think that matters currently, and maybe in terms of like putting behavioral economics into probably development economics, for example, or like combining them both? What are the aspects of economics do you think could be done?
One thing, it depends at which level. I think at the very early level of studying, I think improving your technical skills would be the most important thing. And doing that would be taking some math courses, either within the department, or even if you are more challenged, if you are more skillful in math, even take courses in the math department in your home institution. This is as far as undergraduate level. Then when you develop yourself, then you have to ask yourself a question: what do you think are the most important economic issues that and the most interesting one to you? So the idea is not to do what some people do in research. They identify a tool and then they ask themselves, what kind of domains can I use this tool for? But rather go the other way around, the more natural way around. What are really the important issues? And how can I resolve them? And if you ask yourself this question, different people will obviously come with different answers to these questions. Behavior is obviously an important issue, but then you have to ask yourself, for what kind of economic phenomena or economic issues you want to use research about behavior. And the thing that you mentioned are, I think, in my perspective, are very important. Development, poverty, social interactions. These are the things that I regard to be important. But again, it's very much a matter of taste.
I see, Professor. All right. Just our last question. Did you have any inspirational figure or anyone that probably drove your achievements and the one that you look up to? And if there is, whom and why?
I think it's Bo Baumann, Nobel laureate Bo Baumann,
yes.
Who was my teacher, who was my guardian. He is a source of inspiration, not only in professional life. We're good friends, and we talk about life in general. Love, relationships, everything.
I see.
And it's a great gift to have somebody who is extremely smart, but also very sensitive as a friend.
Yeah, that's really nice to have someone to relate to, especially if they were your tutor and teacher. All right, Professor, that was a very interesting interview.
Thank you very much.
And thank you very much for speaking to us today, and really looking forward to a talk later. Thank you.
Thank you very much.